a black millionaire accused of fraud, a bank manager blinded by prejudice. And a moment that would expose the true cost of racism. A quiet injustice unraveling in plain sight. At Summit Crest Bank in downtown Atlanta, Miss Linda Carter, the newly appointed branch manager, was eager to prove her worth. But when Mr. Marcus Bennett, a modestly dressed millionaire, stepped in, her hidden prejudices took control. What followed wasn't just a clash of words, it became a battle of respect and humanity that no one in the room would forget. Before we dive into this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest stories. Now, let's get started. Marcus approached the counter with a polite smile. "Good morning," he said calmly, sliding his account details across to Linda. "I'd like to deposit $200 million into my account." Linda froze for a moment, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the paper. $200 million? She repeated, her tone sharp and incredulous. "Are you serious?" "Yes," Marcus replied evenly, his composure unshaken. But Linda's expression hardened. Her eyes darted between him and the document, as if searching for proof of deceit. "Do you even have an account here?" she asked, her voice colder now. The room seemed to quiet as nearby customers turned their heads, sensing tension. Without missing a beat, Marcus nodded. "I do. Feel free to check." Yet Linda hesitated, suspicion clearly etched across her face. The weight of her unspoken assumptions hung heavily in the air, and the simple transaction began to spiral into something far darker. Linda's hand hovered over her keyboard, but she didn't type. Her eyes locked onto Marcus, her skepticism growing more visible with every passing second. "This kind of transaction isn't typical," she said tersely. "I need more proof. A driver's license. Your business details. Anything." Marcus retrieved a business card from his pocket, sliding it across the counter. "This should help clarify things," he said, his tone calm. But Linda barely glanced at it before shaking her head. "Scammers always carry fake cards," she snapped. "And you," she paused, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "don't exactly fit the profile of someone handling this kind of money." Nearby customers whispered among themselves, their gazes flicking between Marcus and Linda. The tension was palpable, thick enough to silence even the most routine chatter in the bank. Marcus, still poised, leaned slightly forward. "Perhaps you could simply verify the account," he suggested, his voice measured. Linda stiffened, her doubt morphing into outright hostility. "I don't trust this," she said flatly. "You're trying to pull something, aren't you?" The mood in the room shifted. A routine interaction had become an unspoken confrontation, exposing Linda's biases for everyone to see. Linda's voice rose above the quiet murmurs of the bank. "People like you always try to cheat the system," she declared loudly, her words laced with disdain. Marcus's calm exterior faltered for just a moment as the words hit him, but he quickly regained his composure. "I assure you, there's nothing fraudulent about my request," he replied firmly. The bank grew silent as customers and staff alike turned their attention to the escalating confrontation. Just then, the glass doors of Summit Crest Bank swung open, and a tall man in a sharp suit strode inside. His commanding presence immediately drew attention. "Is there a problem here?" Mr. Richard Evans, the regional manager, asked as he approached the counter. Linda's face flushed, but she didn't back down. "This man is claiming to deposit $200 million, she said, gesturing dismissively toward Marcus. "It's obviously not legitimate." Richard's sharp gaze shifted to Marcus, and in an instant, recognition dawned. "Mr. Bennett," he said warmly, extending his hand. "It's been a while." The room erupted in murmurs, and Linda's expression froze in shock. Richard clasped Marcus's hand with a firm handshake, his voice warm and professional. "Mr. Bennett, I didn't expect to see you here today. How's Bennett Enterprises?" Linda's face turned pale. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. The weight of Richard's words began to sink in. Turning to the gathered onlookers, Richard gestured toward Marcus. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Mr. Marcus Bennett, the founder and CEO of Bennett Enterprises and one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the city. More importantly, he paused, his tone serious. He is also Summit Crest Bank's largest private investor. Without him, this bank might not have survived the last financial crisis. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Linda's knees wobbled as the gravity of her mistake became undeniable. I didn't know, she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Richard's expression hardened. And why didn't you know, Linda? Because you didn't bother to look past your assumptions? Because he didn't look the part. His words cut through the room, sharp and deliberate. Marcus stood silently, his calm presence a stark contrast to Linda's growing embarrassment. Richard's gaze swept across the room, his words resonating with unmistakable authority. At Summit Crest Bank, we pride ourselves on treating every client with dignity and respect. Today, that principle was violated. He turned back to Linda, who stood frozen, her face pale with shame. Linda, you've been here for less than a month, and already your actions have jeopardized the integrity of this institution. Effective immediately, you are relieved of your position. Clear out your desk. The murmurs in the crowd turned to audible gasps, and some began clapping. Linda blinked back tears, fumbling for words that wouldn't come. She grabbed her belongings and left in silence, her heels clicking against the marble floor, a sound of defeat echoing in the Grand Bank lobby. Richard then turned to Marcus, his voice softening. Mr. Bennett, I deeply apologize for what happened here today. I assure you, this behavior does not reflect the values of Summit Crest Bank. Marcus nodded, a faint smile crossing his face. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate your candor. This wasn't the first time I faced such treatment, but I hope it'll be the last, at least here. Richard gave a firm nod. It absolutely will be. The tension in the room began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of reflection. Customers exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of guilt and recognition. Many realized they had watched the confrontation unfold without intervening. Marcus looked around the room, addressing everyone. We all have biases, some ingrained, some learned. What matters is how we choose to confront them. Judging someone by their appearance doesn't just harm the person you misjudge, it harms your own integrity. His words hung in the air, prompting a silence filled with thought. Richard escorted Marcus to a private office to finalize the transaction. The remaining customers stood in quiet conversations, reflecting on the lesson they had just witnessed. Respect and humanity should never be negotiable, regardless of the circumstances. Today, at Summit Crest Bank, a single moment of prejudice revealed a profound truth. Respect and fairness are not optional, they are essential. Marcus Bennett's quiet resilience and Richard Evans's firm leadership reminded everyone that integrity shines brightest in the face of injustice. Let this story inspire us all to confront our biases and treat everyone with the dignity they deserve. If you found this story moving, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful lessons that challenge and inspire. Together, we can build a world rooted in understanding and humanity.